Hello, Gravitrons. I'm more gravity. Let's play chess. I finished this game about 2 minutes ago, and I like the accuracy and particularly impressive moves. I guess you could say great or brilliant moves, as they're designated here. My opponent and I both played an accurate game, and I was able to actually wrest a win in an endgame situation. That I can see here might not be the brilliant move. I don't know. Let's get to it. Here we go. I had the white pieces. I have not played this opening before. I'm not sure what it is. However, we're into this strange opening where, for reasons I'm not sure, I played f4 early, and here I am coming to terms with its consequences. Queen e6 check, blocked by queen to e2. I want to say just before that, and then we'll move on. So when my opponent plays my opponent plays bishop to h6, that kind of invites g3, and now white has this natural strong pawn chain towards the center. Also, a great spot for white's light squared bishop to move, and that's the g2 square. Queen e6 check. Block with the queen is good enough, I feel. And so queen e6 check, queen to e2, and knight to a6 stomps out any idea white might have of knight to b5. Then also knight to c7 check, grabbing the queen on e6, or if she's moved, the rook on a8. All that is done away with by knight to a6, covering the c7 square. It's not the best square for the knight, but you also don't want to lose your queen. So, or a rook to a knight either. So a bit of a prophylactic move by my opponent, and a good one at that. Knight f3, queen takes e2, bishop takes e2. And I think this is exactly the right move. The evaluating engine, I and my opponent, by their having played this move, all agree knight to b4 is strong. The idea is, if I decide to play bishop to d3 to prevent the fork at c2 with knight takes c2 check, then my opponent can play knight takes d3, and I'll capture c takes d3. But these pawns on the d file are doubled in a way that is really, really weak for white. They can be so easily attacked by rooks, especially on the d file doubled the way they are. When you see pawns that might be doubled, like here and here for white or something, and that's it, and they don't have these compadres on c2 to help them out, and they don't have a compadre on the e file because that pawn I think is captured towards the d file or has gone away or something, then that's very, very weak in terms of pawn structure. Hold on a second, folks. All right, I am back. Okay, so we have that pawn structure is very, very weak with those d pawns. My opponent plays another awesome move. Bishop to h3. I will not be able to castle through an attack. The attack on f7. Or sorry, the attack on f1. White cannot castle through that. This is a good, strong, long-term move that my opponent played. Bishop to h3. And, honestly, things are going to get a little bit crazy here. I played knight g5 thinking it captures results in my taking off the dark squared bishop, and my opponent no longer has the bishop pair. Or if this bishop retreats right away, then the bishop on h3 is free to be captured. So either way, the knight here is strong. He can be booted, but not right away. Now, knight takes d3 check. Of course, well, I must resolve the check, and of course I'm going to capture. Pawn takes d3 with these really nasty, badly doubled pawns on the d file. Yuck. And now, what I thought, I honestly maybe my suggestion here for my strong opponent would be bishop takes g5, and f takes g5, and these pawns are looking nasty and doubled and easy to be picked off by black's other pieces, which for right now remain on the back rank mostly. So if you have, that's the with pawns. If you have laden your opponent with a bad set of doubled pawns, and you can double those pawns even more, or you can double double a different set of pawns. Do it. Pawn structure works better after it's past a critical mass. Right. So these are bad, and another set, and black can almost rely on picking apart white's pawns. That's not what happened. We did see the move bishop to f5, aiming at one of these pawns that are so weak, and I'm okay with trying to block that attack. Knight at g to e5. Partly knight at g to e5 because this square is going to make the knight very relevant. I'm noticing that if we're not going to go to this square eventually, my opponent will boot this knight at some point, most likely, with pawn to f6. It doesn't. He sure that doesn't have to, but the knight becomes booted, and then knight to f3. I don't know. I don't like knight to f3 here. I don't know why. With the knight on f3, and the pawn on f6, the forward progression of the knight is either blocked at d4, controlled at e5, controlled well at g5. I don't know. It didn't seem in good sync with the position. And then with the knight on f3, say bishop to bishop at f5 to d7, followed by bishop to c6, and things are looking weird for an undefended minor piece and an undefended major piece right through it. For right now, I can block with like d5, but I didn't like it. I don't know. Something about knight to f3 didn't speak to me here. So I played knight to e4. He's more long-term there. The knights on c3 and e4 have this symbiotic thing going. This pawn, which was just a target a moment ago, is now an important defender of the knight at e4. Here's this, because the doubling of these pawns is slightly good for white. Slightly bad for black, slightly good for white. It's not quite as critical as my d pawns, but we'll see in a few moves here that this does the trick. Another thing, capturing knight takes f6, and after e takes f6, the move, which we'll see, knight d5, and we've got a fork. The knight will be attacking two different pawns at the same time. That's hard to defend against. So, even not to pursue this pawn on f5 right away, but rather to play knight to e7 check. Okay, so only move king to b8, and now knight takes f5. And the response, of course, g takes f5, tripled pawns. Alright, this is a situation with triple pawns. I might name this game something about bad pawn structure. But, yeah, I don't know. Don't hold me to that. But yet, the pawn structure is a huge element of this. I mean, we're talking like white's only good pawn structure here on from h2 to g3 to f4 is extremely helpful. So extremely helpful that the dark squared bishop, black's dark squared bishop, has hardly anywhere to go. With time, he can make himself relevant, but also the tripled pawns on the f-file are a little bit getting in the way of that. It's just really, this is a very strange position overall. The bishop moving to f8 would bump into rooks, and this is a strange position, I'd say. Here, back to the world of calculation and variations and combinations at this particular station. No, but seriously, bishop to e3 is huge here for white. Holding on to this pawn, even as much of a weakness as he might be right now, holding on to that pawn for the sake of having another pawn that might become queen. D takes c4. I don't know what to say about this. The move is pawn to c5. D takes c4, and then there should be an immediate rook takes d3. Okay, so yeah, at least the move is consistent with a stratagem here to open up lines, trade pawns, and my opponent wants to be on the d file, double rooks on the d file here, while I haven't even castled yet. So that's not bad. That's good chess. Okay, I played king to e2. I have to be faster than my opponent at this moment. So yeah, king to e2 will do the trick. Just barely. Black's rook will either move or I would have frankly thought rook at h to d8 would double these pawns well, and then white will still offer trades of rooks on d1 and has just enough rook power and manpower to make equal trades and end up with a similar endgame to the one we end up with anyway. But instead my opponent played rook to d5. I don't think this is a very good move. Some things are going to be similar anyway. Like I said, double rooks on the d file, and now some contentious trading, who's to trade, and we get ourselves all the way into a same colored bishop endgame. Now most of the time you say same colored bishop endgame, let's pick a color. Light squared, no, what's the other one called? Oh yeah, dark squared. Dark squared bishops are dueling in this endgame. The issue is you would, if you didn't have couldn't see the board and you didn't know about triple pawns or anything, but you had a report said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dark squared pawns of the equal amount of pawns that the sides have. Almost all of white's pawns are on the same color square as his remaining bishop. That's bad. That spells bad bishop upon bad bishop upon bad bishop upon naughty bishop upon zoot bishop. Okay, this guy should be a really, really bad piece, and by comparison, my opponent has more than half of his or they pawns on light colored squares, which should be really awesome for this dark squared bishop. We move around and all this, but because of these tripled pawns, count them tripled pawns on the f-file, unless you count white and they're quadrupled, but you only count the same color. So these tripled pawns and this pawn chain on the queen side is just or on the king side rather, strange as it is also impeding my opponent's dark squared bishop's movement. Okay, a5 is some of these moves. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe well, yeah, a5 is a little bit out. I would probably black could play a6. What I'm gonna start to do here, as we saw in the game, is take up as many light squared. No, I'm gonna take up as many light squares as possible here for white. We're just gonna move pawns to light squares, and that way my opponent's bishop cannot get them. At least not until they move. I think I kind of messed up here. Yeah, so we'll talk about this. King to c3. And then my opponent is attacking c5 twice. And it's not clear that white can do any better than a draw according to computer, but according to me, maybe that even black has a little bit of momentum. My opponent found the strong move. Bishop f8. So here I'm just going to rethink this. I had played king c3. I don't know, is that clear? I'll probably play a similar move anyway. Moves like pawn to h4 or pawn to h3 come to mind. Let's check in with the analysis window and see what our friendly computer friend Torch4 Light has for us. Bishop to d2 or b3. So bishop to d2 is good. Bishop to d2 is good, and b3, just simply getting the pawn on the light square. Bishop, yeah, oh gosh. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, my friends. Bishop to d2, definitely. No matter, so that this pawn on c5 is targeted whatever, because the bishop's going to capture on a5 immediately thereafter, and I think white is doing quite well in the resulting endgame, picking apart easily the pawn at f6, maybe not immediately, but he's smudged between two of his own pawns. So I think bishop to d2 was the better move, and I just didn't find it. Instead I found the move king to c3, which is a mistake, and there's some heroics here with bishop f4, and now I have two protectors on c5, so capturing that pawn doesn't seem worthwhile, at least not right away. And b6 seems to swing things once again in black's favor with 1, 2, 3 attackers to 1, 2 defenders. And I found the move king b5. It's one of my better moves in a while. I don't say so myself, but that kind of stuff. King to b5. a5 here, giving up the bishop, because once the bishop is sacrificed, a6, and there's no way to stop the pawn. He doesn't even just barely get stopped by black's king to c6, because king to c6 can't occur in this position. My king is already covered. This is a strange, this game has strange pawn structure. About it, and some twists and turns, and here we go with queen being made because a bishop can't get there in time through his own blocked pawn. Weird. Queen to a8, or pawn to, sorry. The move would be called a8 equals queen. Check, no. a8